Namaskar. Welcome to Daily Global Insights with Sree and Sree. Today is the 3rd of
3rd
June,
of June,
Thursday,
Thursday,
and
and
we have a
we have
lot to
a lot
cover.
to cover.
And
And
Sridharji, Namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar, good morning to everybody. And it's a cloudy Thursday in Manhattan, as you can see around.
Yes, indeed, and I can see it in the background, sir. And we'll start straight with Barack Obama saying that Joe Biden is finishing the job with my former staff where I left off. So essentially, he is kind of acknowledging that he is leading from behind.
Yes, Mr. Obama coined this phrase, we will lead the world from behind. So that particular terminology continues in terms of the execution of Biden or Obama Biden administration 3. We had always had some inkling and we had indicated. Now, in the New York Times article, he confirms that it is his administration that Biden is overseeing by virtue of the policies and the continuation. And most of the members of the team are from his past administration. So we have made the first kind of formal acceptance or formal revelation that it is Mr. Barack Obama's administration. We always had questions as to who was running it. Now, here we go.
And China Trade Envoy and US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen meets by video and discussed the economic situation, bilateral cooperation, and other issues of mutual concern, according to Commerce Ministry statement. Who was she meeting with, sir?
She was meeting with the Trade Foreign Secretary of China, and this is not reported in most of the mainstream media in United States. This news has been picked up. It's quite revealing that while we have one aspect, which is namely the sanctions and tariffs in some components being lifted by the Congress, we find that the Treasury Secretary is having a conversation with her counterpart in China. And she's discussing economics, trade, as well as things of importance on a bilateral matter. Okay, not covered in the mainstream media. So it looks like there is a what you call front end news, which is around belligerence on how to deal with China. But on the back end, there seems to be negotiations and there seems to be normalization attempts going on to patch up, which is one of the reasons why you see less and less rhetoric on Taiwan between China and United States.
And we're going to analyze this a little bit more as more interesting items come down the pipeline here. Biden appoints Vice President Kamala Devi Harris to lead efforts on voting rights. So this is on top of what is being done in various states, sir?
This is being done. This is to bring this to a federal architecture rather than the states are doing their own, because the Biden administration recognizes that they have no way by which they can address this at a state level with about 32 plus states controlled by the Republicans. So they're trying to do it. And who else but Kamala Devi Harris? She's in charge of the border. She's in charge of the voting rights. She's in charge of climate. She's in charge of dealing with Central America. I don't know what she is actually going to do, but she seems to carry lots of titles.
Sir, it is masterful inactivity thus far, so let's wait and see. Joe Biden says terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland. So this is amazingly reminiscent of what Mr. Rahul Gandhi, also known as Pappu, said some time ago when he said that the biggest threat to India is Hindu terror. I think this was the Samjhauta Express incident that took place. Many of the threats there are still not solved. In fact, one army colonel is still left in limbo. I can go on. Sir, your thoughts?
My thoughts is a very profound statement. I won't be surprised based on the comment that the observation, this probably script was written and very generously passed on by Mr. Gandhi to Biden. Who knows? It is possible, but it's quite amazing that such a statement is being made when the world is witnessing all kinds of things within the United States.
The construction project known as Line 3, connecting Wisconsin to Alberta, Canada, is heading for disruption with mass protests and for cancellation by Biden. Is this something that is a groundswell like an Antifa movement, or is it something else? How do we read this news, sir?
First and foremost, I think this was one of the projects that was, we discussed it in one of the earlier DGIs. The project is well underway. This is the joint collaboration between Canada and United States. This project, again, brings significant amount of jobs and energy, what you call energy security to United States. This is one of the reasons why United States became net exporter during the Trump regime. This was again targeted by Biden. This project is well underway. It is being done by U.S. Army Corps. Having said that, they recognize that the U.S. Army probably is far more powerful and the Canadian lobby is powerful. So the only way that they can sabotage this is to have the people in Minneapolis, in that segment of the pipeline, to conduct agitations in Minneapolis and basically bring people to awareness that this project needs to be stopped. What we are witnessing is an amazing, amazing disruption of activism-led protests and sabotage of economic activities in this country.
So we have the hidden hand of Mr. Obama. Looks like there's another hand that is directing events in and around America, perhaps the world.
Yeah, perhaps. And I think, yesterday, day before yesterday, we covered the Albanian president raising his hand and talking about it. Some of the Indian journalists have talked about it. Some of the incidents in Russia, for example, Mr. Putin has talked about it. Some of the incidents in Western Europe, people have talked. It's very much very official in the United States, and 110 million of the $150 million committed has been invested to recraft United States from education to awareness and so on. It's very clear that there is also another hand that looks like fairly visible in these disruptions.
And Chamber of Commerce says that the US labor shortage is going to become a national economic crisis. Mayorkas has 3 solutions: mass migration, recall deported illegal aliens, and end remain in Mexico problem. So all these solutions are another ruse to bring in more immigrants in an illegal way. I don't know what is going on in this country, sir. I'm completely at a loss. Right now, we are still in the grip of a pandemic. The last time they were allowing people in, they didn't even test them if they were COVID positive or not. So we're going to have one more outburst, and they are housing them in places where there is dense populations. I have no idea what is going on. Am I being too paranoid?
No, I think you are well justified in your apprehensions. You are well justified in stating this bewildering situation that is developing. So we have 11 million illegal immigrants in the country who needs to be normalized. Then we have had a border surge, which has brought in close to more than 500,000 people just in the first 4 months of the year. We now have, because they couldn't deal with the surges, they sent buses. So buses brought them and located them into various cities. Now, Mayorkas has announced 3 plans. One is, I have a mass migration policy whereby I'm going to go to Central America and bring these people. Second, he is basically saying, all those illegal aliens who were deported, how do you kind of rationalize and how do you normalize these things? So you're going to bring all those illegal people who are deported, being brought back. And then you also are going to have this program where those who said, attempting to cross the border, couldn't cross the border, or there were delays, they said stay in Mexico. Now you're going to bring all of them back. Remember, all of these people are coming in, and only after the due validation process, verification process, they may get their normalized status or temporary permits. But in the meanwhile, they're saying, come in because we're not going to have any checks. There is no COVID-19 test. There is no background test. There's nothing. They're just coming in. And you have Madam Escobar, who works in Mayorkas's department, also being part of this whole camouflage program called as normalization. And all I can say is that this seems to be a political agenda of Democrats to see by the time they get to 2022 to have enough people all to be given voter ballots and vote so that the Democrats have control of both House and the Senate and the whole agenda. So that seems to be the only motive. There's nothing to bewilder. Their political agenda is very clear, which is by hook or by crook, flood the nation with people, give them the ballot so they vote Democrats.
Well, they tried this in Florida a few decades ago, and that didn't quite work out to that end, isn't it?
Well, we are now got a new tool or a new technique, which is called as borrow our way out, right? We are going to borrow money till cows come home. So we borrow every year. Previously, probably Democrats had a little more frugally conservative members in their ranks. Now there seems to be no frugal. It is progressives led by Mr. Biden, Mr. Obama himself, because I still go back to that email that he wrote in the Georgia Senate elections when he said that our progressive agenda is at stake. This is time for people. This is very decisive. All of you come and vote, and we need to get our agenda going. We need to have, this is the Senate, we need to have the Senate in control. So I go back to that email constantly as a reference framework. And he himself has acknowledged in his interview in New York Times that he's driving this agenda with his past administration.
And Wisconsin lawmakers advance a bill to stop election workers from fixing mistakes on election ballots. Pennsylvania legislators head to Arizona to observe the election audit. Trump endorses Georgia Governor Greg Abbott for re-election. Sir, before I hand the baton to you, I just wanted to tell our viewers that, there is a lot of churn going on about these elections, the voting rules, and so on and so forth. States are jumping in, and now you can see that Vice President Harris is also going to be heading a panel. To understand all these things, I wrote a new book of fiction that is imminent. It's going to be coming out very, very soon. And this is, again, like I said, a book of fiction that talks about what could happen in a future election in the United States. Now, with that in mind, I hope you will give me the same kind of support that gave me with my other Who Painted book series. Yes, this book also starts with the words Who Painted. Stay tuned. And Sridharji, your thoughts on these legislators going back and forth, sir?
Well, first and foremost, there are, let's kind of pause. First and foremost, the Pennsylvania legislators going to Arizona is revisiting the 2020 elections and looking at the validity of the election process. Not that they can change the 2020 elections, but it is to see what exactly transpired, what was the extent of the fraud. Because Pennsylvania, Arizona both had, but Pennsylvania was most notorious in terms of the incidents that took place along with state of Georgia. So that is why these legislators are going up and down. So that's one facet. The second part of it is basically there was an error in the law, and they want to make sure that the error is fixed. In Georgia and probably even in Wisconsin and in Michigan, you found on the election day the ballots that were incorrect. They cannot fix the ballots. The election officials cannot fix the ballot. It is invalid, and there it stands. Or you give it back and those fellows go back and come back, but not on the same election day. If it's a postal ballot, you mail it back to them. The question is, in this instance, what they're saying is the amount of fraud that occurred because there was no validation, that the officials were changing the ballot papers. So they want to fix that one. So Wisconsin is leading the way. Once one state does it, you will find that most of the other states will follow similar pattern. This is only the Republican states. You will not find this in the blue states. The third is
No, go ahead, sir. Please finish your thought. I thought you were done.
The Greg Abbott, the vice re-election, Texas and Florida are leading the red states in a lot of reforms that are going on, right? Ranging from the election laws to the border surges to unemployment benefits, opening of the economy, masking and demasking, racial theory. So whole series of, including climate accord, the whole series of activities, these two states are leading the Republican states. Hence, Greg Abbott's re-election is critical.
Sir, I'm getting an earthquake. Hold on. Please continue, sir. It was a pretty big shaker. Go ahead.
That's it.
Thank you, sir. And we just got an earthquake in Silicon Valley. I will tell you the numbers in a short while, but it was a pretty big trembler. In fact, I don't know if you saw my screen shake a little bit.
Yeah.
And sir, elections are something far too important to be given in the hands of states and counties. This is my take, that there has to be a uniform way to select the most powerful person on the planet. And it's my hope. For 20 years now, US has been in the grip of questionable verdicts that have been handed down for the selection of the president. I hope that sanity prevails, that if not 2024, by 2028, US has the best election system in the world. Let's hope. The next news item, sir. Democrat wins special election for congressional seat in New Mexico. In Washington Post says that labeling lab leaks as debunked conspiracy theory was wrong. Rep. Ron Johnson, we have come full 180 degrees turn on lab leak theory. So now we are starting to see people walk back whatever they were saying in the past. And we're also having in emails of Anthony Fauci and Chinese CDC Director Emalis exposed. Where are we heading, sir?
We are heading towards some form of disclosure by Dr. Fauci. The reason why I say that is we haven't covered it today, but the breaking news as we got in here is China says if anything is done on the COVID side, which puts it, it will exercise nuclear option as an option. That just basically tells you that China has something to hide and it doesn't want to be, garlanded with this COVID theory. This is the breaking news as we got into the show. Okay. So, is he giving an implicit threat, which is to say, don't expose me? That's one thing which is possible. The second is that there has been, Gordon Chang has been saying that you will find Biden administration, I keep coming back to Obama after the weekend or after the most recent, his interview. So the Biden administration stating that, it's quite conceivable there's nothing, because originally they said that there's nothing to on the China theory. And then, of course, intelligence gave otherwise. So what you're seeing is that there is some revelation that is going to happen. Whether it is covered up, not covered up, we don't know. But there is going to be some revelation that's going to come out. It is also conceivable Dr. Fauci may be asked to resign, or he will resign himself.
And so if Fauci goes out, is he going to be the proverbial sacrificial lamb, sir?
Of course. Of course. How do you do your political cover-up? Only the sophistication varies, but around the world it's the same. Yeah, he is going to be the scapegoat. And I won't be surprised. This is Democratic, and they will somehow put this garland on Trump also, which is to say, it's possible that Trump asked Fauci to hide this piece of information. Something like that could come out to stir up us. We could have another few sessions of Daily Global Insights covering just this controversy around the battle between Trump and Biden on the COVID theory.
And in Indian news, Amul VC urges the Prime Minister to ban PETA, urges conspiracy theory by breaking India forces. A little bit more context here, sir. What is Amul VC? Venture capitalist? I didn't get that.
Amul Vice Chairman.
Vice Chairman. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no venture.
In fact, PGurus put out a cartoon on this, so you're welcome to go to pgurus.com to take a look at the cartoon. Now let's move on, sir. Karnataka government tweaks electric vehicles and energy policy to attract more investments. In fact, a good friend of mine has made e-tempos. There are 4 different models. I've actually interviewed him on PGurus. So stay tuned. This is a plant that is based out of Karnataka. It's a very, very fascinating project, and I've had the good fortune of being involved at the time of planning out a lot of these things. So stay tuned. Sir, your thoughts?
No, my thoughts are Karnataka had a little bit of a mismatch in terms of its policy on capital subsidies. I think they have normalized the capital subsidies. They're also giving an incentive on production, 1% production subsidy over the period of 5 years or so. So it is normalized, which allows people to. I mean, Karnataka is a fairly harmonious state within the context of industrialization. So therefore, there was probably an imbalance in the investment incentive model that's been harmonized.
Indian Railways transports the highest ever freight for the month of May at 10% year over year gain. So Indian Railways has been the bulwark of trying to get all these oxygen equipment and most of the logistical problems being solved through railways, isn't it, sir?
Railways is the heart, hub, and spoke of the Indian ecosystem, whether it is transportation, logistics, whether it is movement of troops, whether it is movement of goods, whether it is movement of commodities, whether it is movement of agro products. It seems to have been the hub and spoke. All the inefficiencies are slowly being eliminated. They've all been retooled. I am told now the freight trains can run as fast as a Rajdhani Express. So therefore, I'm told they run at super high speeds. Previously, as you probably know, if you had been in India, lived in India, they used to be the slow-moving trains. If there's anything to be stopped, it'll be the freight trains that will be stopped, and creating a lot of rumpus around the logistics. So it's a good news that they have lived up to the expectation. Just on the liquid medical oxygen, it's now railways is an integral part of the value chain, supply chain, that we have already covered that, but we need to make sure that we continue to reaffirm that point.
And exports jumped 67% to 32.21 billion in May. Trade deficit is at 6.32 billion. Impressive numbers, sir.
Well, I think the exports has been the underpinning driver of the during the pandemic lockouts. So India is very much on very much on target. A lot of these exports are not just purely the traditional kind of exports. So there's manufacturing exports that is growing. The steel exports that is likely to grow. You will find also the India has had a surplus of the power generation sector. Where there's been a problem is the consumption and the services because of notion that for every time you have a problem, you need to shut down. So I asked a question to some, couple of people before I got into the show. What's the reason? The reasons are very simple. The mainstream media is very, very critical that if the moment there is somebody sneezes or there is a death, they basically blame the government. So the government says, I go to the safer option, and basically, for me, I better shut off everybody and make them stay home. Even then I get criticism, notwithstanding the fact that there's an economic disruption. My point is the states in United States, which opened and allowed people to be part of the environment, part of the ecosystem, are the people which have thrived and have seen less fatalities related to people who have been locked up in their homes.
And in global news, Israel's new government formation is happening now. And as we predicted, Naftali Bennett is going to be heading the new cabinet. It's a very interesting government formation because you have the extreme right as well as the extreme left, in the sense that you have a Islamic party also as part of this coalition. The first 2 or 2.5 years, I think, is going to be by Naftali Bennett, followed by somebody else. I think it's a centrist that's going to be following. So your thoughts, do you think this will last the distance, or is Israel in for further uncertainty?
I still believe that these 12 days they have time to put their numbers, and they just passed the deadline in terms of passed the deadline to confirm that there would be a coalition in place. So Naftali and the coalition is confirmed to be given 12 days so they can prove the numbers. My belief is that something still Mr. Netanyahu could pull out and come back to power. It's possible. Now, in terms of the next question that you have asked is, what about the duration of this administration? I just don't know whether they will last for 6 months, let alone or even 3 months. It is one of the most potent coalitions. As you rightly said, you have center, you have left, and for the first time in Israeli history, you also have an Arab Islamist party part of the coalition, with running the Israeli part of the Israeli government. Never happened. So, can an extreme right guy work with all these different factions to manage this, moribund or the bandwagon? I doubt.
And US Israel relationship sinks to a new low under the Biden Obama administration. We've been warning this for a while now. So, your thought, why is this Biden administration so hell bent on trying to break every relationship that was painstakingly built in the previous regime?
Because it is Obama administration. So Obama administration was less sympathetic to Israel, and he went against the wishes of Mr. Netanyahu, and struck a deal with Iran on the nuclear. He had sympathies and much soft corner not to stop. See, one is a Palestinian rights for self-determination. The second is the terror that emanates from those territories. Very similar to some of the issues that everybody from India you can't have both things going hand in hand. You can't have, terror on one side, you can't have normalization on the other. This has been the problem. And Palestinians, an average Palestinian has suffered. And many of these Palestinian people come across the border and work in, mainstream or, Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem. That's the truth. They come and work and they go away. But it is this incidence of terror that has created problems.
And Republican Senator Lindsey Graham says Israel will demand $1 billion from US to replenish its Iron Dome. Why should US be footing the bill, sir?
Because US has always been what you call as the backstop for providing security to the state of Israel. Right. Without United States, all these years, it's inconceivable as to whether they would have all kinds of sanctions would have been imposed on Israel, and United States stood up and vetoed and supported. So natural that to protect state of Israel, you need this dome to stop the flying rockets. I think Sree put up one of those videos which shows how the dome was deflecting.
Unfortunately, sir, sorry to disturb you. Unfortunately, I'm not able to get the video up and running today just because of some technical difficulties prior to starting this program. And in fact, we have captured an earthquake happening in today's episode. I'll be sure to catch that snippet and share it with our viewers that California is a great land, but it does shake once in a while. Sir, getting back to this thing. So I do not have the video. In fact, I will not be able to share some of the things that I had set out to share. I tried it, but there is too much work and I don't want to disrupt our process to do that. Let's move on, sir. The latest news from Iran is very, very interesting. Iran's largest warship catches fire and sinks in the Gulf of Oman. Major Iranian oil refinery also on fire. Sir, these two are too coincidental to be just that, coincidences. What is your take on it, sir?
My take on it is that we will soon know the truth. That it seems too coincidental. Their main battle tanker or warship catches fire and sinks in the Gulf of Oman, and then the Iranian president announces that there's a major fire in one of its oil refineries. It's very strange, but happened on the same day or around the same time. It seems too coincidental, but we'll get to know more.
And there is some disturbing news coming out of the United States, US to India and 5 other countries. You tax big tech and we will tariff you as US trade sinks to a new low. I think the numbers being bandied about are like 25% of tariffs on India's import from India. Is that correct, sir?
Something along those lines. They do not want, India has got digital services tax that they are introducing, and the digital services tax will apply to companies such as Facebook, Twitter, Alphabet, and so on. It's Amazon is part of the mainstream retail system, so there's no issue on Amazon. But it is these companies which provide digital services will be taxed. So they're saying that people must recognize the Silicon Valley tech ecosystem, especially the social media tech ecosystem, has got a very powerful and influential lobby in the Biden administration. So therefore, this is their way to, push back on some of the technology compliance laws that are coming in, plus also the tax, which is legitimate. China, Turkey, they're all in this club, which is not just purely on the digital, but some of the areas of where they're planning to put the tariffs. And United States says that it will, hit back. So basically, what you are seeing is that there's a new kind of rationalized, new realignment of policies that is taking shape under Biden administration. And these policies are not necessarily to the benefit of United States. In the last 4 years of Trump administration, there's 4 things that worked. One, what worked is that there was trade deficits that were reduced, and basically trade began to flow, and there was normalization. Second, there was less taxes, which allowed the ecosystem to continue to grow when people expected things to normalize. The third, the unemployment rates pre-pandemic was brought down to 3.2%, because there was a seamless engagement between the employers and the employees. And fourth, that, the small businesses, which were able to get reasonable loans and aren't also burdened with the Obamacare. Many of the people were scared of the Obamacare mandate, especially impacting the small businesses. So these 4 things helped U.S. economy to grow, and the only major tension was with the Chinese and on the tariff side. But all those things are being unwound.
And Denmark faces labor shortage that could deter economic growth for years to come, wants its prime minister. I think in Denmark and other European nations who are facing labor shortages should look to work with a work for hire kind of a visa with countries like India, which has a surplus of any kind of technical manpower that they may need, and use this to bring them on a work visa for 2 years, 3 years, something that the Middle East used to do very successfully over the last few decades. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think that wasn't that the policy that was adopted when the Y2K issue was being resolved, plus some of the other technology issues. If Scandinavian countries, if you go in 99, 98, 2000, you found that, for example, in Finland, there was a lot of people who had come from India. If you go to parts of other Scandinavian, lots of cross-pollination from Europe. And if you had seen Ireland, which had labor shortage, lots of people from mainland Europe had gone to Ireland to work in the companies that were established when Euro was being established. So this is, as you rightly said, the policies that you are outlining is consistent with what can be done and what has been done.
And Russia linked cyber criminal REVIL behind the meatpacker JBS attack. Is the ransom now paid? Do you have any update on that, sir?
No, we don't have an update on the ransom, but I think that very soon we'll come to know that there would have been some payment that is exchanged hands. The specifics, but the fact is that this is not a government attack. This is another ransomware attack. It's by another group. Maybe it is the same set of people. They've changed the name from dark side to evil, or ransomware to some other terminology that you can that they can appropriately come up with. But they've named this group is called the evil. It may not be again in Russia. You may find that somewhere in Eastern Europe. But the general tendency is to first blame the Russians and then retrace back.
China ousts Taiwan as Apple's biggest source of suppliers. So I thought it was always China, but maybe Taiwan was giving some of the more expensive components. Your thoughts, sir?
No, Taiwan had, Foxconn and others had manufacturing facilities both in Taiwan as well as in China. When things began to ruffle up between China and Taiwan, they began to move some of those facilities out of China. Plus, you remember that incentives were given to India, and India was was being set up as a location for some of the iPads and some of the Mac capacities to be manufactured out of Bangalore. So therefore, there was a shift that was going on. But now Apple has attacked, China has attacked, whether China is doing it from its mainland, or remember, China has also investments in Vietnam, it has investments in Thailand, it has investments in Myanmar. So it can also manufacture some of the stuff out of these countries and market it to back to United States or to Apple as, made in China, branded products. So the details are a little sketchy, but China wanted to deliver a message to the market, which is to say that now, I am bigger than Taiwan in terms of my supplies to Apple.
And ASEAN, or the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, is wary of quoting US fearing another pivot. This is again the Biden administration. Some of you guys write some comments which I find very questionable on our website, like saying that, if there is something that is being done poorly by this administration, it is our responsibility to call it out. It is data. There is nothing here that is, one-sided or we are not carrying the brief for Mr. Donald Trump. If he makes a mistake, we will say that too. Right now, he's keeping quiet. What do you want us to do? Anyway, sir, your thoughts on this?
No, I think it's basically what you're witnessing is there's an apprehension and fear that whether U.S. is a reliable partner. I mean, we discussed it with the Reagan being pulled back into Persian Gulf, whether on the trade in the TPP treaty, United States pulled back. They wanted to, even during the Trump administration, Trump was supportive of the South China Sea issues, but he was not supportive of many things that the ASEAN countries wanted as a security umbrella. So the ASEAN countries are saying, look, we don't know whether U.S. is a reliable partner or whether it is not a reliable partner. So this is where China fills the gap. China says, bring capital, I bring thing, and I am a natural security. Of course, there is apprehension whether China is the big gorilla which will engulf all of them. That is the only fear. But relative to United States, if you ask the ASEAN countries, they will tell you, China is a far more reliable partner relative to United States. The fear is whether they will engulf based on some of the precedences in their other adjacent states in the ASEAN, like Hong Kong, for example, like Taiwan, for example.
And before we go to markets, I just have an update on the earthquake. The Richter scale read 3.6, which doesn't sound like it's a big number, except the epicenter was not very far from where I live. That is why probably you saw the shaking. So you can go back and watch it around 5:15, which is about 15 minutes into our broadcast. The earthquake happened and you saw the whole apparatus shaking. I was thinking that it was going to fall down because it did shake quite a bit. But anyway, everything is back normal. Now it seems to be all right. If there's an aftershock, we will let you know. Let's move on to markets, sir. In a remarkable assertion, the Fed Reserve Chairman states that he sees widespread supply chain disruptions and labor shortages and rising prices. So this is too much money in the system now. What are your thoughts?
I think he's pointing out there is inflation looming without saying that there's an inflation looming on the horizon. That's number one. Number two is saying, without saying in those words, folks, there's a problem. There's too much of money being given to people, so nobody wants to come to work. How can you have, an unemployment rate of 7.9%, and then suddenly find you have labor shortages, right? So you have labor shortages, 7.9%. My message to all those people, because I don't see the screen, all the people who are critiquing that we are overtly critical, all one needs to look at is the policies that is coming out. Look at any of the policies: immigration, discrimination, farmers, this dole outs that is being given, and money that is being given without proper validation. You look at whole swag of policies, there seems to be conflicting. You are borrowing money, but and then you are giving dole outs to people, but yet you have a high unemployment. We're still around 7.9% unemployment. So there is such a disconnect. I think Fed Jerome Powell is saying there is a looming threat. Why there is a supply chain disruption? There's a supply chain disruption because of all this to and fro that is going on the tariff changes, etc. When you make all these tariff changes, people can't just substitute products just like that. There is a time lag that happens. So that is also creating a problems in the supply chain, which means the manufacturing gets impacted, which implies the end products reaching the consumers who want it don't get it. Just as Sree pointed out, when he went to the Home Depot or one of the stores, he was looking for it. Either the price has gone up or the product is not available. That's just a classic example of a supply chain disruption. So that is what he is pointing out. And for the first time, he is saying we have a looming problem coming, and that is right knocking at our door.
And that brings us to a close of today's Hangout. We'll be back again bright and early tomorrow morning. Do tune in, and thanks for subscribing. And if you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing to our channel. We also have a membership program. By the way, we will be introducing a members only event very, very soon. We will share the details as soon as we have firmed up our guests. Stay tuned on that. Sridharji, as always, a pleasure having you on our program, and we'll be back tomorrow, won't we, sir? Namaskar, and see you tomorrow.
Namaskar and thank you. Yes, indeed.